How you doing? Nice to see you. Grab my belly. All right. I'm gonna pass this around. If you guys don't mind just signing in. Appreciate it. Tracking that. Welcome everyone. Yeah. So I saw you on Instagram and messaged you. Saw your story and posted about everything that you had going on. So I thought reach out. I love seeing people grow and see success in all things, but specifically for this, like I really try to bring in high level content for the investing world. And just seeing your guys' story and what you've done, I just thought it'd be perfect. And did you say this first time speaking? Is that right?
For
together?
Me.
Okay,
together,
cool.
Yeah, we've done events together, but
Have you?
first time
Cool.
speaking together.
Yeah. So I'll just turn it over to you guys if you want to walk through your story and just everything you've done. For next month, we've secured. You guys know Josh Sterling at all with Epic Property Management?
Yeah, we've met him. Yeah, he's a cool guy.
He's the best.
He's
the best. I've known Josh for over a decade now, and he's coming in for next month. So
great guy.
Join us.
Yeah.
And so without further ado, let you guys take over. You got the mics set up? Did they get?
Oh yeah. Do you want to?
Mic good. Yeah,
absolutely.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah.
They should be.
They're on. Yeah.
Perfect. You want to turn that one off?
Yeah, we build out a video library for all of our agents.
Oh, awesome.
Nice.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you guys so much for having us. My name is Tony Steppen. This is my wife Andrea. Just so you know, like the room, real estate agents. Okay, perfect. So like more than half, and then just pure investors. Okay, like how many properties? So we know how to customize this. Who here is working towards their first rental property? Okay, so who here 1 to 10 properties? 10 to 50. Over 50. 50. 50 is A. 50 is enough. Okay, anyone over 100? Okay, perfect. Well, awesome. So yeah, we can share a little bit about our story. So my wife and I together, we own 120. We just sold 12 units. 120 rental properties. We got started in 2020. Didn't know anything. I'm a registered dietitian. I come from the telehealth space, so I built a business in the telehealth space. My wife was
A school teacher in
former,
Troy.
So right over here. So and we own our own brokerage too. We got some of our awesome team members here with us today. We want to make this about you guys. I really hate going somewhere when someone just gets up and drones on and on about themselves. So in order for us to make this the most beneficial for you guys, like what do you guys want to learn when it comes to real estate investing? How can we take our experience and best help you guys? So let's be not awkward, break the ice, share a little bit. Yes.
I think if you can talk through how you generate leads and then what are your systems and processes to filtering as to what is a deal for you and what's not, and how do you quickly, like what are some of your quick filters on what works for you and what doesn't work for you?
Now, when you say leads, do you mean like tenants or properties?
Not so much tenants, but actual like investments.
Absolutely. Yeah. So when we started, like I said, guys, we really didn't know, much about what we were doing. I was blessed. My first business did extremely well. And the main thing that got me into real estate was the tax benefits, right? Anyone here do like cost segregation, accelerated depreciation? Yeah, it's a big mover. It's one of my favorite reasons why I love real estate investing.
Amen.
Yeah, it's the best thing, right? My favorite quote is there's 2 tax laws, one for the informed and one for the uninformed. Both are perfectly legal, right? And that's a big thing with real estate investing. It's a great way to reduce or eliminate your taxable income. That's a big reason why we did it. But I think when we first started real estate investing, didn't really have a grand plan or scheme. It was just kind of like our mentor, our business coach, owned rental properties out in California. So we just started with buying one house in Royal Oak.
We started with one in Royal Oak, and then we went on to the second one was Royal Oak, and then our third was our primary. So we turned our primary into a rental.
Yeah, so great way to get started. So we still own those houses right now. We own everything up to a 56 unit, and we're actually under contract right now for a 100 unit property. Best piece of advice, just get started, right? Start small. Everyone wants to jump to the big apartments. Wouldn't have the confidence to have owned the apartments without starting the single family, right? So I think that's my best piece of advice, to get started with where you can. With lead flow, so with the single family, those were all on the MLS.
Yep, residential agent.
Want to talk a little bit about like the MLS and just like getting, cause my wife works with a lot of investor clients right now.
Yeah, so we're looking for investments. You know, when we get started, we look at what their criteria is and what they're looking for. So sifting through the MLS, but also to going to other agents. If that property is taken, then we go to the agent and say, like, what else do you have? So that happened with one of my deals. I just got under contract for one of my clients. The property was taken, it wasn't marked, but he had sent me another property. So again, just kind of going a little bit above and beyond to always ask those further questions. Or two, it might be brought to the client, and then that might not be the best fit for them. And then we kind of go off of their criteria and see, you know, navigate that way.
Yeah, so like our beginning phase was all off the MLS.
It was.
Right? It was, to be fair, it's 2020, 2021, so there's a lot of inventory. Debt was very inexpensive, right? I think the early investment properties we had were 3 and 4% interest rates. Sorry for those looking to get started right now. It's a little bit more challenging right now, but it's very opportunistic, right? Challenge presents opportunities. There's a lot less investors, a lot less competition right now, right? All of those were sourced off the MLS. From doing that on the MLS, we started to develop a bit of a track record. So I use social media, you know, consistently. Like Joe said, that's how he found out about my wife. If you guys are real estate agents, you're real estate investors, social media is huge. You know, a lot of people don't understand the power of it, but if you don't promote it, you demote it. I mean, if you're not promoting what you're doing and talk about what you're doing, you're actually demoting yourself. People don't know who you are. They don't know what you're doing, right? So then we did everything from a couple duplexes, did a 4-unit, all residential. And then I started realizing, what's up, man? How are you? Good. Started realizing, okay, there's power and scale, right? The more units you have under one building, the more potential for income you have, the more profitable it could be. So we kind of set the goal in 2021. We wanted to buy our first multifamily. Right? So a beautiful 7-unit had popped up on the market in Northville, Michigan. So this was on the MLS. It was a bit of a bidding war to get it. It was listed at $550. We ended up paying $660 for it. Sounds like we overpaid, right? A year later, it was worth $1 million because we improved the NOI. We were able to do 100% cash out refinance and take all of our money out of the deal. That's the power of multifamily. It's more of a business. You can control the income, you can control the valuation a bit more compared to single family residence. Single family residence is more locked into the comparable sales, right? If I'm getting $4,000 in my duplex, but my neighbor over here is only getting $2,000, but their property just sold for $230, it's hard to say mine's worth $460. Does that make sense compared to like multifamily? So then we start with that, and then again promoting ourselves on social media, talking a lot about social media, talking about what we're doing. We started reaching out to brokers and other connections and got connected with some brokers. Every apartment we've purchased after that, we did a 12-unit, an 8-unit, a couple more 8 units, a 12-unit, 16-unit, a 56-unit. We're all off market. Your network is your net worth. Everyone complains there's no deals. Where do you find deals? How do you get this? It's all networking, right? Brokers are the lifeblood of good properties. They know what's available. They know what's coming available. So every deal since our first 7-unit multifamily was all done off market. Even the 100-unit we're under contract with right now is off market. So brokers are everything. People like Joe, people like John, people like our team. They know what's coming. They have a roster of people, and they know what they have, and they're able to contact them and network with them and say, hey, I have a buyer looking for something. Would you accept an offer on one of your properties? That's the best way to get into good multifamily. I was told this, I don't know if this is 100% true, but the best properties never trade on the market. Don't know if that's 100% true, but we've had great relationships built all through networking, all through social media, all through just, I saw one gentleman, Tom, he was with Remax. So we bought a 12-unit from Tom and 2 8-units in St. Clair Shores, 12-unit in Harrison Township, 2 8-units in St. Clair Shores from his buyer. Because I saw he listed 18 units in Fraser. I bid on it. I didn't get it. This was back in 2021. I called him relentlessly until he picked up. I said, hey, here's who my wife and I are. We have mostly single family. So again, always pitch yourself, right? Always saying what you do have, because brokers like to know you've transacted, right? Even if you're like, hey, I own 2 duplexes, it at least tells us you're a buyer, right? Because everyone wants to be a real estate investor until it comes time to invest in real estate, right? And put their money where their mouth is and sign on the dotted line, right? It's a nerve-wracking process, right? You have to really be confident in yourself and confident in your business plan. So I called him, reached out to him multiple times, finally got him on the hole. I'm like, hey, dude, do you have anything else potentially coming available? He's like, hey, let's go for a drive. I'll show you some properties. Took us to how many properties?
I think 4.
We bought 3 of them. Because I just called him relentlessly, right? Follow up. The money's in the follow up. You guys know that if you're a real estate agent, right? The money's in the follow up. So that's how we've been able to source our deals. So I kind of told a little bit about our journey. Happy to expand upon any part of that so we can best help you guys. What questions do you guys have?
What would you say your buy box is?
Now or when I started, or when we started?
Probably both.
Yeah, do the journey.
What part of the journey? The long
From
journey.
the start to now.
What did you say early on it was? Obviously, kind of have you changed your math as a result, or are you stuck with the same math the whole time through?
Such a great question. Such a great question. What would you say was single family?
I think with single family, we were just looking to get started. That was just our goal. We just wanted to get started. We weren't too concerned about cash flow at that point because our Royal Oak homes didn't have that much cash flow, but we just wanted to get started and learn the process. So in the beginning, we knew we were going to be in a good area with appreciation, and that's what we were concerned about at that point when we were in the single families. Then after that, when we started going into 2 units, we just wanted to keep progressing. So we kind of would set that goal of like, okay, now we're only going to stay in 2 to 4 units. And then after that, again, our goal was to get to 7 units. So that was, we wanted to step into the multifamily space. So I guess as far as like a buy box, again, when we went to 2 to 4 units, then we said, okay, now we're going to start learning the management side of multiple tenants living under one roof. That's completely different than a single family home where they take care of everything, right? So even then at that point, we had third party management, but still we were involved. So we knew everything that was going on, and you learn a lot of different things about tenants when there's more than one in a house. So I think learning that side too kind of helped us prepare. Then we said, okay, I think we're ready now to jump into multifamily.
Yeah, in the beginning, back to it, we didn't really have a master plan. It was, hey, my business is doing extremely well. I'm paying a lot in taxes, right? How do I eliminate my taxes? Buy real estate, right? Use depreciation, use cost segregation. My wife qualifies for the real estate professional status. If you guys don't know what that is, look into it. Speak with your CPA. It's a game changer. You can qualify for it. It allows you to deduct your depreciation against your earned income, which is huge, right? Absolutely huge. So it was just buy real estate. Just buy real estate in good areas, but just the best areas we could.
Right.
How that's evolved now, much more at the level of it needs to have scale. So our goal now is every property needs to be a little bit bigger, and every property needs to have an on-site manager. So my wife is the manager operator, but now we're buying properties that have on-site managers there, and my wife now moves to a regional manager position. It becomes a scalable business. When you buy multifamilies, you're buying a business, right? So our 56 unit, back to the power of scale, it has enough income producing to where we can have an on-site manager living there, being paid to run it. And my wife then just manages the manager. So that's our buy box now. We want every deal to be a little bit bigger within reason. I'm not going to take down a 700 unit anytime soon, probably. But it has to have an on-site manager, and it has to have profitability. And I'm looking for value-add real estate. So when I say value-add real estate, what does that mean? I'm talking too much. The NOI over time. You guys know what NOI is? What's NOI? Someone tell us. Net operating income. So this is profit, right? Income minus expenses equals profit. Net operating income. We look for multifamily properties, which are businesses, that has low NOI. Because I know if I can increase that NOI, what's it do to the property value? Increases. I want businesses I can take over, improve, go back to the bank in a few years, get capital out, and rinse and repeat. It's called velocity of money. How much can I move my money over and over again to different assets? It's no different than like buying a Subway, or even like you guys viewed this like real estate brokerage. obviously Joe's killing it, so this would never happen. But
Them is killing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Go for the ride.
if the brokerage was underperforming and you could come in and buy it at a valuation of here, you knew you could improve it and it'd be worth here X to Y. The same thing with multifamily. So we look for properties that have lower NOIs from a combination of just artificially low rents or poor management. The property we're under contract with right now, poor management. They're not here. They don't live in the state. They had on-site management that they never checked in on. They had very poor performance. Without giving to it, because we're under NDAs and all that, we have to respect the privacy of it. Can you speak to a little bit to the management challenges that were going on at this property?
At that property, yeah. So I think the biggest thing at that property is the tenants there and collecting the rents. So right now they're have a few evictions going on. So that's the opportunity we see of putting the right people into the property. I mean, that's a huge part of it, of making sure that they're qualified, running the appropriate background checks and things like that. So that's where we see the opportunity there of making sure that we have the right people in there and collecting the rents and staying on that. And adding too on like, different fees that come about that. They're not charging late fees. They're not charging fees for anything. So again, that also goes on to the NOI as well.
Yeah, so we're looking for management businesses that we can improve, right? We're not really, this was really important. You have to learn what type of investor you are. We're not real big flippers. We're not big repositioners, right? Repositions when you have to come in and completely redo the entire property. We have a property like that in DeWitt, 16 units. It's a headache. It's a total headache. A lot of upside on that, but it's a lot of headache. You have to kind of know what type of investor you are. I have a business, my wife owns a business, and then we have our real estate business. So we're more of management play, value add real estate investors for someone who's going to come in and be like, hey, I'm going to redo an entire property. So this is my good piece of advice for you guys. What headache do you want to put up with? When you buy real estate, you're solving a problem for someone else. And the bigger the problem you can solve, the bigger what? Return, profit, right? What problem do you want to solve? If you just jump into it and you're like, I'll buy anything, you might not understand what you're buying, what type of problem you're buying, and if you're set up to fix it, right? Like, someone said distress, would you buy a property at 50% occupancy? That's distress. Would you buy a property where no one's been evicted in 6 months and there's 50% delinquency? That's distress. Or would you buy a property that's totally deferred maintenance? That's all distress, right? What type of distress do you want to deal with? So just kind of like, I think too, we work with a lot of investors on the brokerage side, not understanding criteria. So really just sit back and understand, like, what do I want to deal with? Because it's all about solving problems. Or do I just want a turnkey? If you want a turnkey, don't expect much cash flow or return, right? Does that make sense? Yeah, great question.
So when you are in the process of improving management, typically you're saying the cash flow is probably either even or negative or maybe barely positive. My anticipation, by the time you break it down. So what do you do from a financing perspective to get you from, current existing situation and bridge that gap over to when it's actually, you've got it back and got the shit going?
That's such a great question. Real estate is a very slow way to get very, very wealthy, right? That's the way we view it. Like I've expressed, my wife has a business, I have a business. So we view real estate as a vehicle for long-term wealth, appreciation, cash flow, and tax benefits. So when we buy a distressed property, when we buy a value-add property, we're looking at year 1 and year 2 as potentially break even. Every dollar that property produces, we're pumping right back into it in way of unit turnovers.
We do it with like management,
Yes.
Unit turnovers,
Upgrading, doing things to the property. Like we bought a 56 unit, we're going to do all the roofs. It's a six-figure, multiple six-figure check. The goal is then to get the property to where we know it can be, execute a cash out refinance, take capital out of that, and then stabilize it. We've always utilized banks and credit unions. We've never done bridge lenders. So a bridge lender is like someone that would say, hey, there's really not any cash flow here. We'll bridge you for a period of time and you'll be on a higher interest rate. So we've always used credit unions and banks, and that's why, guys, it is so important if you get into the real estate investing side, but especially the multifamily side, have a couple good banks and credit unions you build relationships with.
Give an example of banks, and you don't have to give your specific, but I think it's important how you position, when you say banks, people think Chase. which is not who you're talking about.
No.
anticipating.
No, they actually don't. Chase will not do multifamily. Chase is very risky. No, you're looking for local banks and credit unions that believe in you and your business plan. The bank is your biggest partner on the deal. You think about it, they're funding 80%, 70%, 75%. They're putting the biggest risk into it. So start with your local, if you guys are members of local credit unions, you know, check out with them. We've utilized a lot of different ones. Frankenmuth,
NBC.
NBC is a good one. We can make referrals for any of this, so if you guys need this. Financial Plus Credit Union. Who else? Team One Credit Union. Dart Bank we've utilized. All through networking, right? All through networking. Hey, who's a good lender getting things done right now? And lenders rotate and they change, right? They're kind of like, for lack of a better expression, moody teenagers. You don't know what you're going to get this week with them, you know, what their budgets are, right? Hopefully there's no teenagers. Yeah, you have to network a lot with them. We have not used the same bank over and over. They change. Their budgets change every year. Right now it's difficult. It is difficult because everyone wants deposits. Because banks and credit unions can only lend in relation to their deposits. That's where everyone got in trouble in 2021, 2022. They were lending. They weren't requiring deposits. And now some banks or credit unions can't lend because they're out of those ratios. Or they'll lend to you, but they'll want 20% deposits, right? Does that make sense? Questions with that?
We say 20% deposit, so if it's $1 million deal, you're saying they
200 grand in
they
deposit.
might put 200 grand into their bank.
So they'll say, hey, we'll do a 75% loan to value on this $1 million. But then we want 20% of the loan in deposits. So they're giving you $750,000, 20% of that. They want $150,000 in deposits. So when you look at it, what's that? Exactly. When you look at it, you're like, all right, so it's actually like, but your principal and interest don't change, right? You're still financing that higher amount. So just be cautious. Read your covenant. Whenever you reach out to a lender, don't just ask them what's the rate. What's the terms? Rate's just a piece of that pie. Hey, I'll give you a 6% rate. Oh, great. But it's 50% down, right? 1%, or I'm sorry, 1 year term. So you have to understand your terms. Very, very important. Read the terms, read the term sheet, understand the covenant. I could go on a full rant on
I
that.
just want to comment.
Yeah.
2 years ago, I bought a house in Oxford on a lake, like 500 grand, and
Yeah.
that was Dearborn Federal Savings. And the thing is, so I was looking for a rate at the time. It was right when everything was starting to go up. And every lender I knew, every broker was at 6.5, 6.75 at
Sure.
that point. They gave me 5% with like $500 in closing costs.
Oh, that's great.
And they said, then when you sell your house and you pay down your loan, yeah, for $100 we'll re-amortize your loan, not refinance it.
Hmm.
So that's because they keep their own loans. They're not selling to
Right.
families. So the local banks, if they keep their loans and that's their income, those are the people to work with.
Totally. And that's a good point too. Ask who services the loan. You want to make sure that they service it because in multifamily, again, it's a business loan, business debt. You're going to have what's called an annual review where they're going to check in on whatever you guys agreed to, usually a 1.2 debt service coverage ratio. You want to make sure that they're underwriting it, that they're not sending it out to someone else who doesn't know. It's very relational, right? It's very personal. And making sure you have those personal connections. So yeah, definitely as we started and as we progressed on, the track record became very important. So as you guys progress, your track record is very important. That's to where we can sometimes get some terms and some preferred lending because we built relationships and we built a track record. And back to what Joe was saying of just that first year being, maybe a break even, that's why keeping capital reserves is so important. I would never tell anybody to quit your job or quit your main source of earned income and just go buy a couple of rental properties, right? It's very, very, very important, especially on value add. Because value add, you're saying, hey, I need to force this value up. So I need time. The only way you lose in real estate is if you run out of time and money, right? So if I have money and I can buy myself time, that's how you can get to the end goal. I mean, you can talk a little bit about, so with our 56 unit, we took over in October. Rents were so it's 1 and 2 beds.
Yep, they were between 600 and 700, 800. So that's in Warren. So we're almost done with putting everybody on our leases. Everybody was month to month. So that's what we had to do is we had to take over, put everyone on year leases, and then put them up to market rent. most of everybody took the rent increases. And again, when we go and do rent increases, we're not just like, hey, your rent's going up. Sorry. We always like to try to go with like a giving hand too. Like one person, their fridge went out, we got them a new fridge. If they need like a carpet cleaned, we'll do that for them. We had one in St. Clair Shores where her carpet was all bunched up, so we got her new carpet with the rent increase. So also to making improvements to the property too, not just going in and saying your rent is going up. So that goes a long way with building rapport because again, in the beginning, new management, new leases, there's a lot going on. So no matter the size of the property, we also don't go in and do all of them at one time. So we break it up depending on how big the property is. So for the 56 unit, I think we did like 8 to 15 at a time. So we have about one more round left to go. Another thing that was very helpful is the on-site manager has been there for 10 years. So that's the other thing too. He has a very good rapport with a lot of the tenants as well. And a lot of them have been long-term tenants. So again, kind of just giving them that ease of saying, okay, it's new management. Nothing's going to change too drastically, but we have to put these leases in place too. So we're almost done with that business plan, and then that one will be completed.
So when we took over, rents for the one beds were where?
They range from 600 to 700.
And now we're getting what?
So we do $950, and then we do a $50 utility bill back too, because they only had electricity in their name. So that's the other thing too. We're looking at the lease too, because we also look at what's around there too. You know, we're not going to price ourselves out, but at the end of the day, they're paying $950 for a 1 bedroom in Warren, and they're only putting electricity in their name. So we want to do that utility bill back. We don't have a RUB system in place there, but we'll do that utility fee so that, you know, that covers some of our expenses too for the utilities because we'd have gas and water in our name as well. So
and then the 2 beds were.
So the 2 beds again, that ranged. I think the highest we had was 850 or 950 in the 2 beds, and now they're at 1100 with the $50 bill back.
So you have to have time to execute that.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going to come do that all at once. Like Andrea said, operations is everything, right? You make your money in the operation.
Right? What do you think so you basically raised rents by 30%, it sounds like roughly. Approximately.
Mm-hmm.
What did that do in terms of your net operating income, and then what you think, how did the total value of that building went up when you got done with that project?
Yeah, great. So it's what's called the magic formula, right? Dollar of increased NOI divided by the cap rate is your potential valuation increase, right? With interest rates, though, it's an interesting thing of a correlation with cap rates, right? Because usually the higher the interest rates go, sometimes it can negatively impact your valuation. So we're definitely looking approximately at $1 million at least of the value at play there. You know, and again, it all depends on, hey, when do we want to refinance it? We're not going to sell that building, and it depends on the appraiser and the cap rate associated with it. It appraised at a 6% cap rate when we purchased it. So even if that came in at like 6.5 or 7% when we went to refinance it, you know, there's substantial value to be added there. So again, back to just like the power of scale, right? Our first deal, we did something very similar, but we only had 7 units. So that value went from 660 to $1 million. Still really good, right? This building, you have 56 units, 54 viable, so one's for a manager, one's for a model. $200, $300 rental increases on that, huge. And any major item you put into the property, it's a capital expenditure, right? So when we replace fridges or roofs or whatever, that does not impact your NOI line. It's very important to understand, back to understanding your business plan and your criteria. Capital expenditures fall below the NOI line. So we can pay money, we can pump money into the property without dinging our NOI. Does that make sense? That's very important for you guys to understand. There's routine repairs and maintenance, like fixing a leaky faucet. But then you're like, hey, I put in new countertops, I put in new floors, I put in new appliances. That's a capital expenditure. That does not impact your NOI.
You're typically waiting after you get all the value adds done to run cost segregation, or are you doing it up front to get some of your money?
No, immediately. Yeah, they'll come in, and if you do like a major reposition, they'll come in and they'll like do a bonus study and have it redone. No, we usually just do it right off the bat, especially since it's been declining in depreciation, right? So this year we're at 60%. Yeah, so we've never done it like twice. Make sense?
What was your start to finish on? Let's just use that last one. You say you increased it by $1 million. What was like? How long did that take? Like, how long did it take for you to solve that problem?
We're still solving it,
Okay.
right? Still working it. We took over that property October
yeah.
2023. So we'll be done completely with the interior. We still have exterior work that we need to get wrapped up.
Mhm.
June, July.
Yeah.
Head southwest toward West Redeemer Road.
There you go.
We're going to go
Yeah,
back
it's like, I'm gonna fact check this right now. But yeah, that's the power of owning the management. So something we didn't touch on, and I think is viable, is in the beginning, again, we didn't really know what we were doing. We used third-party management. Nothing wrong with that, but in any business, when you can control the operations, you're gonna get the better result. We then let them go for a couple different reasons. It just didn't work with what we wanted. We're entrepreneurs, we're very hands-on, so in reality, we probably should have never done it in the beginning. That's when we really started to see things pick up and shift. So if you guys can self-manage, I highly recommend it, right? I do highly recommend it. Next week, the property manager's gonna come in here and say the opposite, right? But yeah.
I got a question. So when you have an on-site property manager, do they perform like handyman services on the small stuff like leaky faucets or toilets and whatnot? Or do they coordinate plumber, electrician, or whatever to come out?
Yeah, so the one at Mound, he does all the maintenance, and we have one other that does our scattered site. The one at Mound will go to other ones, but our maintenance, we have a few different maintenance technicians. We have the one at Mound, then the one that goes to scattered, and then we have somebody that does like our large unit turns. So the property manager is the one that's going to be scheduling those. So that all comes into the system. We use Buildium. It's a really easy software. So that all comes to the software Buildium, and then that gets scheduled out by the property manager.
Great question.
What do you see as the threshold on units from on-site versus off-site management? Like, where do you see the turning point be?
That's a really good question. You know, it all depends on the income it's generating, right? But I would say 40 to 50. But everyone's got a different answer with that. Some would say 80. You know, 56 though, he was already kind of factory installed there, and we inherited that business plan, like from how they ran it with that. I'd say 56. You're looking at it, but it depends. You know, it depends how active do you want to be. It's a big shift from a scalability standpoint because our goal is to get to 1,000 units just in house when you have on-site managers. So even like I would buy a 40 unit if the income was high enough to have an on-site manager. But I would say once you're above 40, 50, you have enough income to really constitute it. But I know people with a 20 unit that have an on-site manager, you know. So.
What do you typically see their compensation being? I know a lot of times they usually get a unit for free there.
Yeah.
And then like, what do you see as a typical cost associated beyond that?
Industry standard 24 to 30 an hour, just depending on are they 1099, are they W2, what benefits, you know, it all depends.
24 or 30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it depends, like you said, what's being provided, what's being expected. Are they managing a 200 unit or a 20 unit? That's totally different. You know, are there assistant managers there? They're leasing managers, you know, so that's the range we've seen. Great questions. Great questions. Other questions, other things we can.
Yeah, what other kind of technology do you use? I heard her throw out Buildium, but is there anything other than that that helps you with your day-to-day?
No, we just use Build. Yeah, we use that for leasing, but yeah, for Buildium, that's what we use for our property management is Buildium, and then Google Drive. I mean, that's kind of just goes. Yeah, it makes it very simple because Buildium has everything in there. You can do your automated emails. You can do texting through there. So that's one thing we try, you know, very hard to be communicating with the tenants. But again, you can get very caught up in a tenant texting you at midnight, right? So we try to really, I think that was the biggest thing from taking over these smaller multifamilies, like 7 to 20. A lot of the times it is owned by one person and they know the owner. So, right, it's kind of natural to be like, okay, here's my phone number, but that can very quickly turn into text messages and phone calls at all times. So we try to, as much as possible, say we'll only answer, of course, unless it's an emergency. We'll get the calls, but that needs to go in Buildium, that needs to go in the text messages or in the tasks. And that's made the biggest difference because then you can, again, organize your day of saying, I know, and then too, for yourself, knowing that you answered them and you're taking care of them as well. So I would highly recommend using that.
Can you collect rent with the program?
You can, yep. And they have the option too to pay with a credit card, which is nice. There is a fee to that, but if they need to make a payment with credit card, they can do it that way. And then if they do an auto deposit, then there's no fee to that.
Do you like it?
I do. Yeah, I like it a lot. You know, we've taken over from managers where it's like cash, checks, you know, coming from all different places. Oh, you can come pick up my check. I mean, we've gotten it all. But that way too, again, it's a tracking nightmare to be getting rents that way. So again, as much as possible. And again, this is something we implement at a certain point. We also say then too, it is also an admin fee for us to do that. If you're gonna give us a certified check that has to be brought to the bank, I can't even deposit on my phone. That's an admin fee. And somehow then they figure out, okay, I can pay through Buildium. So, you know, you got to put that on there
Yeah,
sometimes.
We use Run 30 and
Okay,
we're
yeah.
not crazy about it.
Okay, okay. And
Reporting and stuff is not great with Run 30.
okay, so yeah, for Buildium, again, you can run all your reports. So then too, also if they are paying, you know, we do have some people that they don't do online banking. Again, there's an exception to everything we say, right? So that too, you can record that manually as well, but you can run all your reports. You can run your P&Ls. You can pay out of there if you want to. You can pay your contractors out of there. We don't do it that way. We track it a different way, but you have all of that opportunity to do everything in-house through Buildium. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, great question. Best
Yes.
piece of advice is run it like a business,
Mm-hmm.
right? We bought properties from like the mom and pop landlords to where things were scribbled on pieces of paper and there was no P&Ls. And I mean, that's okay. That's part of like, hey, what problem do I want to solve? Like the 16 unit, he didn't have a scanner. He didn't have like, I mean, literally he's like scribbling things on paper and like, here's my rent roll. And we're like, oh my God, you know, but it was a problem we were willing to solve at the time. So whether you have 100 or 1 unit or 100 units, run it the same, right? Treat it, that is a big piece of advice. Treat it like a business. Don't treat it like a hobby. Make sure your reporting's dialed in. Make sure you guys have the schedule of real estate owned. Have the schedule of real estate owned. Because when you start to go to bigger and bigger properties, they're gonna say, send me your schedule of real estate owned. Like, what's that? It's like a resume, right? So track your properties. What would you buy them for? What's the gross rent? What's the value now? And then when you exit, what was your exit? So it's just a track record. So when I go to apply for a new loan, they're like, hey, send us your schedule of real estate owned. Why should we give you millions of dollars to do this, right? Hey, look at my track record. So do that. Do that right now, even if you only have 1 or 2 units, and just start building that. And I'm a big believer in like pointing the ship of where you want to go, not where you're at today, right, in business. If you're just like, oh, I only own three duplexes. I don't need to do all this. But I want to get to 100. Well, how are you going to get to 100 if you're only acting like you own 3 duplexes, right? Like really put yourself to where you want to go is a big thing. So, question over here.
Yeah, is that program like similar to like AppFolio as well? Or
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, like a Yardi, same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Would you say AppFolio is better or the same thing?
I think personal preference. Yeah, we've heard a lot of people like Yardi. We just kind of got started with building them. We kept it. Yardi has some features that I do like, but to be able to switch everything over, I don't know if it's worth that headache, you know? So if I had to start over, I would look a little bit deeper into Yardi. It seems to have a little bit more complexity to it. Yeah. AppFolio I'm not super familiar with. I think MTH uses Yardi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they do.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. So yeah, run it like a business. Know where you guys want to get to. Look for opportunities, right? Look for opportunities. A lot of people say it's very difficult right now. It is, but there's less competition right now. There's much less competition in 2021. It was wild in 2021. There was a lot of money just being thrown at properties because that was so cheap. Now there's not so much, right? And sellers are a little bit more. Sellers are difficult no matter what. It just is what it is. They have what we want, a finite asset, real estate, especially in Metro Detroit in good areas. I mean, there's not major developments going on. I mean, look at Troy, Michigan. You guys know of major plots of land being sold in Troy, Michigan for new development? No. The only major new development I know is the Birmingham one's right by downtown. You know what I mean? So like Metro Detroit's already pretty developed. So we're coming in and we're buying an asset that if this person has time and money on, right? What I say, you only lose in real estate when you run out of time or money. They know that they have, there's a lot more of us than there are of them, is what I'm trying to say. So I have been a bit more aggressive with acquiring properties because I know I'm going to hold for 10, 15, 20 years and I'm not going to lose at that point. You know what I mean? So it all goes back to like knowing yourself, knowing your criteria. Like my wife and I aren't like, we're going to buy this rental property, quit all of our jobs, quit all our earned income and try to live off of this. I would not recommend that, especially at 7.5%, 8% rates. It's not going to happen, right? But if you're like, hey, maybe my year 1 is a break even, year 2 I'm throwing off some positive cash flow, but look at where I'm at in year 3, year 4, year 5. Don't be so myopic of saying, what's cash flow today? Very hard to find a good piece of real estate in a good area with value add that's going to cash flow drastically on day one, like Fantasyland. And if you find it, jump on it, right? But that's where we see a lot of newer investors get tripped up. It's like it doesn't cash flow on day one. Again, business plan. You're looking at myopically day one, what about 10 years from now, right? And that's why we were saying, if you're crushing it as a real estate agent. I think every real estate agent should sell real estate to want to own real estate, right? Because like, where's freedom come from, right? If you're, and I've only been 100% commission my entire life as a registered dietitian. Very rare for that. I know what it feels like to live and die by the next sale, right? I never had a salary, right? I think commission's the best way to go. We don't have any caps. We're only capped by our level of, persistence and ingenuity. But there's also a limit to that of like, man, God forbid if I get sick or if I travel, if I'm not able to communicate with all my clients, my income goes down. But when you sell real estate, you earn commission, and then you buy real estate that then will pay you over time. That's the ultimate way to financial freedom, right? But you never stop earning income. I'm a big believer in that, right? I'm not
I have something to add to that too. And just as a real estate agent and owning, you're also able to speak to your clients better too. So Crystal's on our team too, and she owns properties as well. And having that ability of owning properties and speaking on it when they do get that concern of saying I'm not cash flowing day one, or is this area a good area? I've heard really bad things where it's no, I own in this area and we do really well. Or the city inspection, what do I do with that? Well, I went through the city inspector. There's one that's okay, the other one is great. Try to get that one, right? So just giving that real world application goes such a long way, instead of saying, it's something we always preach again. It's it's their investment, right? And it's what you want to put it into, but as too, we're advising them as well of saying, these are very good areas, they're good properties to go into, and kind of easing the mind of, like he was saying, everyone gets focused on the cash flow from day one, but not seeing the opportunity when you've owned a property like we've owned for a few years and Crystal's owned for a few years. You really see the benefit after it. In the beginning, it's scary. You're putting your money into it and you're like, okay, I just put $500 into it. I lost $500 this month, but you're not focusing just on the month, you're focusing on the years. And again, speaking to that from that real world example is really beneficial, because we have another real estate agent that we know, he got his first property. And again, he's it's really helped me to be able to speak to my clients, because he did his first unit turn and he did his first putting a tenant in there, and just being able to speak on that experience is very beneficial, I believe, because again, as real estate agents and owning it, you can speak on it a lot better.
Good question.
No, go ahead. Okay. How did you guys decide to exit on some of your other properties, and now that you're buying new ones, do you build in an exit strategy in the business plan, or is it something that just comes later on down the line?
Great question. Everything I own is for sale. The car's for sale. You guys want it for the right price, right? I had a conversation. So I'm a big believer in mentors, right? I started my first business with credit card debt. I charged up my credit card to hire a mentor. I'm a big believer in having a mentor to kind of show you what you haven't learned, right? And you guys have great mentors here with Joe and John and everyone else. And I spoke with this gentleman named Ben Mala. Anyone know Ben Mala? YouTube. Yeah, entertaining guy.
By my wife, really.
Yeah. And I said, look, Ben, we own about however many at the time, 60, 70 properties. I'm like, I want to scale, I want to grow, but you've got your money tied up in the deals and you got to wait. And, I've owned a lot of single family rentals, a lot of duplexes, all this. And he said, here's what I do. I look at how much cash flow is it producing this year. And if I could sell it today for more than 5 to 10 years worth of cash flow, I sell it, I 1031 it, I trade up. He said it's all about working towards a larger balance sheet, the larger numbers, larger assets on the balance sheet. And that was really he's like, break down all your annual cash flow, which I hadn't done at the time, I was just looking monthly. He's like, look at it, and if you were to sell it today, would your profit be greater than 5 years of cash flow? If it is, consider trading up. And when he broke that down, we looked and we're like, oh, okay. Back to what's our goal? Our goal goals to get to 1,000 units, be able to manage those and, operate those. It kind of became clear, right? And then we had the 56 unit come available, and we said, okay, we sold 4 duplexes and a 4
In the
unit.
4 unit, yep.
So how many total units is that? 12. 4 times 2, 8. Yeah, 12. So 12, 1031 into 56. So what if someone today came and gave me a stupid price on the 56? I sold that in about 100. You know what I mean? So I've learned, and that's such a good point. In the beginning, we were a bit emotional. Oh, this is our first property. It's a business. It's a business. And our end goal is to be, if we could own 1,000 unit, that's infinitely more profitable and easy to manage than 10 100 units, right? It's about, there's a difference between units and management units. 50 single family homes is harder to manage than 150 unit. I guarantee it. People like arguing with me on this with social media. It's like, no, dude, it is, especially if they're all scattered all over. That's 50 tenants, 50 roofs, 50 mortgages, 50 tax bills versus 150 unit. Infinitely easier to manage. So it goes back to, we don't just want the most units, we want the best lifestyle that can produce. So opportunistic, right? Opportunistic. If someone will buy your rental property today for a great price, you can put that in a 1031 exchange, which is tax deferred. You're not going to pay capital gains on that. Roll that into a bigger asset. Why not? At least for us. But now I know some people are like, I won't sell anything. They're like collectors of real estate. They're just like, I will not sell. They pass it through the generation. So, it depends. Yeah. That was kind of like the exercise we did that opened up that conversation today. And like, I think we can confidently say we don't miss any of those duplexes.
No.
They were great, and I thought maybe I would.
We
but
did,
now,
yeah.
now that you own a 56 unit, you're like, all good.
Yeah.
You're like, you drive by, you're like, oh, cool, okay.
Yeah.
All the fire team has got all those 20-year-olds that are house back in the duplex.
Yeah. It's all about.
So we should make you an offer on the 56?
I do. Everything. So I try to, but absolutely, and here's another thing. I don't get insulted. Like, if you throw out a number on a property, I'm not one of those weirdos that gets like insulted, like you insulted my children. We don't have children, but if we had children or my dog or something, be willing to make offers to people. Be willing to communicate to people. Be professional about it. Like, I know right away, you pick up the phone, the first thing they say, hi, would you be interested in an offer on? And it's like, hi, how are you? My name is so-and-so. Here's my goals. I've reached out to, you guys know Amber Apartments? Yeah, I've got Alan Amber's phone number. Him and I have had multiple conversations. So I reached out with the giving hand. I've always offered to pay for their time. Gideon Pfeffer, GSH, they own 4,000 units. Close friend of ours, been to our house, been to dinner with them. They're great people. Again, reached out, offered to pay for his time, build a relationship with them. So there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, is what I'm telling you guys. And I'm always open to any offer. I think a lot of people are, and they'll tell you, even Alan Amber, we're like, hey, would you sell one? He's like, no, I only buy. But you can build a relationship with it. So don't be afraid to throw out offers. Don't be afraid to do that. And just build those relationships. Relationships is everything. You guys have probably heard this. The more hands you shake, the more money you make, especially in this business. In the Michigan real estate multifamily market, it is a small circle of who controls the deals, everyone knows everyone, right?
Yeah.
I was at breakfast at Commonwealth right over here with a couple of the gentlemen from Berkadia. Someone comes up to me and says, hey, Tony, he knew the Berkadia guys, and he's like, hey Tony, so you just bought Luke's deal. Luke was the owner of the 56 unit. I'm like, how did you know that? He's like, Luke bought my deal after that, so he 1031 into his deal. It's a small world, guys. It's a weirdly small world. So, make offers. And another piece of advice, we were able to get these opportunities because we did close. We were closers, right? We didn't just tie up properties, kick the tires on them, flake out. Someone mentioned earlier, it's scary. It is. That's why start in your comfort zone, build confidence, and then progress up. Because the last thing you want to do is work with a broker who does control some inventory, tie up a property, and then just flake out for no good reason. You go on this like little list of like, don't transact with. Yeah.
You ruined their 1031.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Great question. What else? How else can we help you guys? Yeah.
So Tony, question. Now, when you got into multi-residential, I real estate, why didn't you choose commercial? Because, you know, a lot of time I hear counter arguments, you know, residential properties, a lot of work to manage them, and, you know, on commercial property, triple net, done.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
why?
Great question. Great question. You know, for me, the triple net model didn't make much sense because that was pretty much like a fixed business model, right? They're locked in on a 5-year, 10-year lease. The income is fixed. Maybe there's a little bit of rent bumps, but that to me is more like maybe when we're at the end of it and we just want to solidify the portfolio with less management intensiveness, potentially. We're okay with getting our hands dirty now to really force that valuation and force that NOI up, you know? And to me, again, knowing our market, right? This is Metro Detroit, Michigan. Do I believe in shopping malls? No, I really don't. I hate, anyone here like going to the mall? I fucking hate going to the mall. You know? I do. Sorry, but yeah. I believe in service based. Like if I can get a strip center with like a dry, like anything Amazon can't do, you know, like services like hair and nail, dry cleaner. Right. Yeah. You know what I mean? Something like that. Yeah, I would maybe, but it's like, man, people always need a place to live. You know? Yeah, the metaverse and all that, but I can't get Wi-Fi on a Delta flight to work half the time. Like we're a long way away from living in the metaverse. You know what I mean? So I like surety, and I know humans always need a place to live. And now with interest rates being so high, people are, you know, younger generation, they're choosing to rent longer and longer. You know, you guys have probably heard like we're potentially moving to a renter's nation. That means 1 out of 2 people will be renters. Yeah. You know, so I like the sure thing. Yeah.
One more question. Section 8 housing. So I heard from a lot of investors, I want something with Section 8 housing.
Yeah.
You know,
I think you can touch on that.
So with that, I always just tell them, I ask them why, and they normally say because I want the income, right? Well, in our experience of screening tenants and things like that, sure, you might get that check every month, but they think that, at least in my experience, that I can't just set the rate to whatever I want it to be, correct? So we have a few Section 8, like we just did the renewal for her and they didn't increase the rent. So she pays part of it and then she gets a section. But they said our rents were too high, but it's been the same since last year. So they didn't increase for her. So to that, I'm like, okay, well, again, to me, I haven't really seen this great advantage to it because I have great tenants that are Section 8 and I have tenants that are not so great that are Section 8 and same that aren't. So again, then it's also to the fact, okay, I'm getting that income, but then how is my property being treated? And that's why I treat each tenant the same way, that each application that comes in the same way, because again, I could have somebody that's not Section 8 come in, destroy my property, and all that income I got is gone. Same vice versa with the Section 8. So I don't just look at what income can I get, it's the qualified tenant. Everyone's treated the same way. So that's kind of how I combat that.
Can I make a comment on
Yeah.
that? So Section 8 depend on your property, depend on where you're at. You know, some areas it's perfect for Section 8, some areas are not. We do a lot of Pontiac properties. 90% of our tenants are Section 8, and we don't have any problem with them. I mean, rent is paid on time. We don't have that many problems with destroying property and stuff like that. It happens once in a while, but it's not so much, like, it's not worse than having non-Section 8. So in Pontiac, you get the rate because they're paying like $1,300 for a 2-bedroom nowadays. You know, they're going up to $1,300, $1,500 for a 3-bedroom. So we have Pontiac. We acquired for very minimal. We're getting $1,250, $1,300 rent for it. So it works for us. But if you're in areas like, you know, if you're in Royal Oak or, you know, areas that you're collecting $2,000 for a 2-bedroom, they have to come up with the difference. It doesn't work in these areas. So it's all economics for that area. Yeah.
Great point.
And the other thing is it has to do with inspections, because even if you have city inspections, then you have to have a Section 8 inspection. And it's funny how Section 8 will come in, even though the city has passed everything and you're fine, Section 8 will find something else.
It's okay. I mean, most of the time it's minor things. It's not huge things. So it's working for us. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, no, and it does. It works great for, you know, again, it kind of goes back to your portfolio. I guess it's just like I said, it's not when someone says, you know, I guess also newer investors, because it's kind of like a buzzword that goes around of I just want Section 8 housing. Again, going, why? And if it is, you just want that, you know, that check every month, but also to, again, pros and cons to any of it. So I think when it comes to like blanket questions like that, always asking why and then digging deeper. If that's your goal, great, then let's go that way. But I think when there's kind of the buzzwords that go around with like Section 8 or I just want cash flow, digging a little deeper to like reach their goals is always helpful. So
Yeah, you don't want to limit yourself to
right.
certain things.
Mhm.
Also, creating a relationship with the people, with the organizations that give you the voucher, like, you know, Community Housing Network or, you know, Pontiac Housing Authority or any of these guys, they'll find better tenants, if you will, for you than, you know, not having that relationship. So,
I'll just, one thing, and this is gonna be me plugging scripts as usual, which is 9 o'clock on Tuesdays and Thursdays. One of the things we teach in scripts is you always ask what makes that important to you. It doesn't matter what the statement is almost, whether it's a retail client, investor, I mean, it could be your spouse, right? It's part of communication. Oh, you want Section 8, what makes that important to you? Oh, I want, right? And that's where you get into those things and you're like, well, essentially, if I can get you the same thing without it being Section 8, isn't that ultimately what you want, right? You can move it in that direction, because we'll get calls and people will tell us, well, we want foreclosures. Oh, what makes that important to you? Well, I want a deal. Okay, so it sounds like you want a deal, right? You don't want to limit yourself to the 0.1% of the market, right? So if you do that follow-up question, you follow up 2 to 3 times, you really can understand what's actually important to them, not just the buzzword that they're throwing out there, right? So, great point. Yeah. Yes.
How much of your time would you say you spend between your main business and your rental activities? Do you keep like a super close track of those?
Oh yeah, I mean, everything's documented, you know, Big Believer details of showing businesses. You know, I'm still heavily involved in my main business. Fortunately, my partner, you know, better half, kind of headed everything up. I mean, you want to talk a little bit about like your ascension with that and how you progressed up with it?
Yeah.
Like how much time involved, you know?
Yeah, so I mean, in the beginning, then, you know, I took over management from the third party, so we did that, and then I was with Keller Williams Domain, and then it was just kind of like that progression of, you know, we're doing our own leasing, we're doing our own buying and selling, so, you know, just kind of keeping everything in house with the brokerage and things like that. So I started my own brokerage. We have Crystal, Cody, and Gabby are here, so all part of the brokerage. So. Again, just kind of like building that structure there of, you know, again, asking about like how much time is in place. I would say like he's more asset manager and then I'm more property manager. And that's one thing, again, we have mentors in every field. So we are part of a mentorship for real estate. And that kind of was like the light bulb on my head because they kind of cross flow, like, right. I'm doing some finances, but then that, you know, again, they intertwine and we communicate, but really, delegating those roles of like, you're the asset manager, I'm the property manager. You know, sometimes he's like, I don't need to know what happened with the toilet today. So, you know, I don't need to know every tenant discussion that you had, but, and I don't need to know every single penny, right? So, you know, to a certain extent. But so yeah, so that's what like really helped to delegate the roles of not to like cross flow that of like asset management goes to him, property management, and the day-to-day go under the brokerage side.
Yeah, great point. It's like really knowing your strengths, you know, like I come from commission sales, so I'm very, you know, leaning towards I'll find the deal, I'll negotiate the deal, I'll negotiate the financing. When it closes though, I hand operations over. You know, I almost feel weird walking around my properties because I'm like, oh, it's like I'm just like the random guy who shows up and pops in, you know. So I'm very blessed. I've always been very blessed to have a partner who's very supportive. Andrew even worked full time in my first business, you know, when she quit being a school teacher. So, but it's, you know, I would say when we let the third party manager go, it was not fun, guys. You know, it was a lot. It was learning. You know, imperfect action always beats standing still. And when we just looked at the cost of the third party manager, and like anything, when it's not your money, you're gonna spend a lot more of it, right? So when they're just writing checks on your behalf and for your properties, it's crazy. It's crazy. There's a lot of good ones. Josh at Epic Management, Josh Sterling, from what I've seen, is a great guy. You know what I mean? So it can work for any business model. The manager we had just didn't really work. So we kind of like had to let them go. We took over how many? 80
I think we're around that.
It was not fun. It was a lot of learning as you go. I mean, there's no property management experience, just real estate experience.
Yeah.
But now a year later, oh my God, I couldn't imagine. but we lived and breathed it. Like any business, there are times you have to step in and live and breathe it, and learn as you go. So if you can start managing on your own in the beginning with a smaller portfolio, you learn and scale up. It's extremely beneficial. Every very, very successful person we know owns and operates. It's really hard to get a third-party manager to operate the way you would. It's not their money. You know what I mean? They're spending at a different calibration than when it's your money. So just what we've seen. But it does work. There are people who makes it work. So
with that, our time is up. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you guys coming
thank
in.
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Yes, thank you.
A couple of things to tell everyone. So, you heard Tony say this, shaking hands and essentially your network is your Rolodex, right? To use an older term. For people who really want to get into real estate investing, I strongly suggest you guys look at KW Wealth. They have their masterminds going on quarterly. There's people in there doing note flipping, multifamily, I mean, you name it. Two people Renee used to work with that we always hung out with are doing syndications across the country right now. When they're together at General Electric, I see them traveling, speaking at conferences. All they're at KW Wealth. Like that network that happens down in Austin when they meet quarterly is amazing. I think Brett said, his wholesaling business did $3 million in profits last year, right? Brett setting it up. That doesn't include all the other things they're doing, right? So I strongly suggest looking at the KW Wealth Network. That's a huge thing. And then also, you heard Tony say that they found almost all their deals through brokers. That's our whole initiative and why we're putting so much time and effort around building out our commercial department is for that exact reason. Selfishly, I want to be a business with a bunch of realtors that are direct to deals on the commercial side because that's where I personally want to go. And I'd love for everyone to go with us, right? So if you have those relationships in the commercial department, we have a goal of 50 commercial realtors being a part of our KW Commercial in this brokerage this year. So if you have those connections, we'd love to get in touch with them. If you understand the way the commercial world works, almost everybody there is somewhere between a 65 to 50 split on every single deal that we do. And we have a different model, right? And so that's something that could be intriguing to them. Brian told me if we get to 50, we'll be number one in Metro Detroit. And I'm like, I'm good with that, also for being number one, right? So that's a huge initiative, and that's why. So let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Reach out to them.
And look for, I said earlier, we referenced Josh earlier a few times with Epic Property Management. Josh also is an owner-operator, but next month I'm going to have him come in and talk about, Josh charges like $4,000 or $5,000 a month for syndication coaching. And because we're friends, he's going to come in and talk to everyone about syndications next month. So be on the lookout for that stuff. Okay. All right.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Yeah,
Thank you.
nice